Carrying with it the name of a bird, iBasso PB5 Osprey comes at a price tag of $1,500 to redefine what a true Apex amplifier is. This is a tube amplifier and it has the most interesting sonic design in 2024. So let's unwrap it and let's see what's inside. I actually kept it inside of the protection transport case because it looks quite good, but it looks pretty cool in person too. This is the PB5. It is a fully metallic amplifier which is not that heavy. Despite its size, it weighs only around 400 grams or 350 to be more precise. This is an amplifier, it has tubes on the inside and if you can hear it, they can rattle a bit. This is because they are sitting in suspension so that they're isolated from movement noise and from handling noise. This tends to be an issue with tubes. I just remembered it when I started using the PB5 and I gave it a few ping and I noticed that there is a sonic ping in the sound. This is normal with tube amplifiers, and what is not normal is to have the degree of performance that PB5 has. First off, this is a fully balanced tube amplifier. This means that it only has a 4.4mm balanced input, there is no single-ended input, and although it does have a single-ended output, it is best to use the balanced output. This is what it's designed for. The single-ended output is there just for convenience. We have a volume wheel, which is a stepped attenuator, just like the one we've seen in D16. I also have the D16 here, because I'm using them together almost every single day. And also we've seen the stepped attenuator in devices like the iBasso DX320 Max Ti or even Wells Milo. Typically stepped attenuators are only found in very expensive high-end units. iBasso is doing a great deal of effort to bring those to us in those portable amplifiers. We have a Type-C charging input, and this has a battery inside. The battery is an important aspect because to keep the sound as coherent as possible, to keep it consistent, iBasso is relying on a set of batteries on the inside to power up the amplifier. If you are using the PB5 connected to a power source, it will charge while it is being used. You cannot turn off the charge. It will charge up until it reaches 8.4 volts, after which it starts discharging, and when it reaches 8.4 volts again, it starts charging again. This means that you can hear some background noise if you have it charging from a very noisy source. For example, if you have it charging from a computer like the one I have in the back, there are chances of some noise creeping in. Especially since it is using tubes, those will be quite audible. Speaking of tubes, I have heard no AMI or RFI, so no electromagnetic interference, no radio interference, although the new tubes on the inside are the latest generation of new tubes, so that may have something to do with it being noise-free. The glass front does not scratch easily. In fact, I have 0 scratches on this unit, even though you can see on our beautiful brolls that we took it outside quite a bit. We have 2 switches at the back, one for gain between low and high and one for power on and off. You need to use the switch to turn it off if you want to turn it off. Same for D16, they don't have an auto off mode. Physically, I think we covered everything there is to cover. The battery life will hold for about 8 to 10 hours of battery life, depending on the volume, whether you are using the balanced output, and what volume you are using. Of course, because a higher volume will drain more battery. This is pretty much everything there is to be about the usage of the PB5 Osprey. I did not know what an Osprey is. Even at what a Taipan is for D16, I did not know that either. So this would be an Osprey, as we can find on Google Images. This would be the PB5. And also, as we can find on Google Images, this is a Taipan. It is a type of snake. D16, it is one of the world's best sounding DACs, which runs in 1 bit, while PB5 is one, if not the world's best portable tube amplifier. Basically, iBasso here decided to create the ultimate flagship. They held nothing back. They just gave it their all, and they managed to create a sound which is truly beautiful. Now, let's talk about the sound. If you've been reading Audiophile Heaven lately, or if you've been watching our videos, you may notice that I always mention those two. Because I stuck them one on top of the other, they do get a bit warm, but nothing concerning. So this has been how I've been listening to music for a really long time, unless iBasso releases something even better. As far as I know, they have something for desktop. I do use the PB5 and the D16 for my desktop usage because PB5 has more than enough driving power for all the headphones I have around the house. Don't have one next to me to grab, but even for T plus A, Solitaire P Special Edition, Hyphyman HA6 SA, Hyphyman 1000 SA, Dan Clark Expanse, and pretty much all the other headphones that I have around the house are properly driven, well driven by the PB5 and D16. Also for IAMs, it is a good idea to use the PB5, both because it has a very low background noise, but also because it has a very colorful, saturated, and high resolution sound. So it can bring everything that's good in most units. Of course, the D16 has not been the only DAC that I've used with the PB5, but it has been the main one, especially since most DACs don't have a 4.4mm line out, which is also balanced. That has been the main setup, the main way I've been using the PB5, but on the headphone side, there have been plenty. During all this time, I've learned quite a bit about the sound of the PB5, and it's one of the most versatile sounds out there. First, we have to clarify that it does not sound that much like a tube amplifier. Typically, a tube amplifier has a tone of distortion, especially a tone of tube-specific distortion, which sounds like a vibration in the mid-range. It adds grain and texture in the mid-range. It gives you this see, or with a lot of vibration, that type of sound, while PB5 doesn't really do that. There is another class of tube amplifiers, but typically those are the high-end ones, like the Felix Audio Euphoria Evo, which you have right here. Euphoria Evo has a different sound and a different approach. It's very clean, there is none of that tube-specific distortion, but it has a very magical mid-range which is saturated and colorful. The same happens with PB5. It's super saturated, super colorful, it has a really detailed sound, really pleasing to the ear, a lot of impact and a lot of control in the sub bass, especially with hard-to-drive headphones, but also with EMs. You get an exceptional degree of soundstage. You get both a deep soundstage, a wide soundstage, an excellent layering between layers of instruments, and you just get that magical musical mid-range. This means that it has a slightly wet character, which creates musicality, which makes the sound cohesive. The sound always makes sense, and also it has no dynamic compression. It allows the music to be quiet when it should be quiet, to be loud when it should be loud. It allows rock and metal to be forward, direct, and aggressive, and then the jazz and the finer, more refined styles to be soft, quiet, and relaxed. This is what you want basically from an amplifier. You want as little coloration as possible and the sound to be transmitted in the most revealing way possible. You want to hear what was in the recording. You don't want the amplifier to add anything. And PB5 doesn't really add anything except that it turns the mid-range super enjoyable. D16 by itself is very capable, but it has a very neutral sound. It is pretty neutral, a bit on the dry side. It has a very fast impulse response. This creates the sensation of detail a bit better than PB5, so PB5 won't really feel more detailed, but the sound will feel more cohesive. It will be more enjoyable to hear. Also, it's beautiful because it turns the lights on the new tubes turn on when it is turned on, which is cool to see. You have one more light turned on in the background, like I have the RAM sticks in my computer. One interesting side effect is that it has a higher driving power than D16. This is a big reason I have been adding it. So for hard-to-drive headphones, the D16 can struggle at maximum volume. You will reach the maximum volume and then you can't really turn the volume pot anymore. With PB5, you never reach the maximum volume. There is not a single headphone where I had to reach the maximum volume on high gain. I always leave the DAC on the D16 on high gain, so there was no difference there, but PB5 just drives headphones with a bit more power, with a bit more punch, with a higher amount of dynamic, and they feel better driven. This is an important aspect for an amplifier. Some people have asked me when I published the written review for the PB5, why would I add an amplifier on top of an amplifier? The point is that D16 is not an amplifier, it's a DAC. The DAC is the most superb part of D16. The amplifier is very similar to the one found in the DX300 Max Ti, but PB5 can refine upon that. It can offer you an even more interesting sound. It can offer you something that no other amplifier on the market does. Regardless whether we're talking about portable or home amplifiers, just nothing doesn't really offer the same amount of dynamics and the same amount of punchiness in the sound. This is how I describe the sound. It's ultimately contrasted. There is a very high degree of contrast between elements. You can really easily tell apart the voice from a mix. You can tell apart the guitars. Every single instrument is easy to notice, you really don't have a hard time pinpointing them. You hear where they are coming from and you hear that really clearly. Considering all of this, I think PB5 is the best amplifier I can recommend to you. The only exception is of course the price, which is quite high. It bears the price of a flagship, but at this point I had to give it a place in the Audiophile Heaven Hall of Fame, and the performance justifies the price entirely. And you may be saying that we have the Felix Audio Euphoria Evo here. Of course, Euphoria Evo also has an interesting sound. It has a pre-function, it has a different design, but it's not portable and it needs 4 really large tubes to produce its sound, while iBasso was able to get this type of sound from 4 new tubes. Once again, something that has not been done before by anyone, even iBasso. The sound at PB5 surpasses the sound of the X320 with the AMP13 new tube based amplifier. It surpasses all of the other amplifiers that came before it, regardless of the price point. Nothing portable can do this, and even the desktop ones can't really do this as well. So a good idea would be to check out my full written review, because there I have a lot of comparisons, direct comparisons to other flagship amplifiers. And if you want a true flagship amplifier, PB5 is a great one to go for. Thank you so much for watching. I also would really appreciate if you would subscribe to the channel, like this video if you found it enjoyable, and if you could do this for me, please have an awesome day out there and please have a lovely time. Bye bye!